predicted landing spot for this stud free agent. Hello everyone, I'm Andy here with Chicago Bears React, bringing you all the Chicago Bears news you crave both during the season and now in the off season. Before we dive into today's story, please take a moment, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications and make sure you don't miss anything that's going to come out in the coming weeks. As we've noted over and over again on this channel, this is going to be likely one of the most exciting off seasons of this generation, and you won't want to miss a thing. So we've talked a lot about potential NFL draft picks, about what's going on with Caleb Williams, Justin Fields. We've talked about some of the staffing changes taking place, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But one thing we haven't really had a chance to dive into is what could be happening with free agency, and there's a lot of interesting directions the Bears could go. We've kind of noted previously that some of the big holes that need to be addressed in either free agency or the NFL draft would be the center position is a big one. Getting a wide receiver 2, and I would say a wide receiver 3 on top of it. I think the Bears probably need both. A secondary tight end, particularly a primarily receiving tight end to sit next to Cole Kmet. We are going to need a second defensive end, I would say, and then likely if Eddie Jackson becomes the cap casualty I expect him to be, I would assume the Bears will be in the market for a safety as well. Now, some of these are kind of obvious draft picks. I think safety would be an obvious draft pick. I think center would be kind of an obvious draft pick. I think you're likely to draft at least one wide receiver, and possibly even a tight end, maybe even a defensive end. It's tough to know, but likely is, we look at what are the Bears going to do with that number 9 pick, or at least what that number 9 pick will end up being, whether or not they trade it to get more capital, what have you. I would expect that number 2 pick, that second pick, that number 9 in the draft pick will be either a wide receiver or a defensive end. That's where I lean. It's possible if they trade back, it could be a center, but one player that caught my attention that Pro Football Focus recently predicted would be the Bears would be a heavy favorite to get is none other than Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley has been with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was previously with the Atlanta Falcons. This is a player who just a few years ago was considered one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and then he had the gambling controversy that lost him a season in the NFL, and that was obviously devastating to his career. But by and large, this is somebody who has been an absolute stud, and he is available on the market. And it's possible because of his age, he's 29, and because of his slight kind of drop off from his Atlanta Falcons days, it's possible he could be had for a decent price. I know Bears fans have talked about T. Higgins. I know Bears fans have talked about Mike Evans. These are guys that would be very exciting to get, but I think Calvin Ridley would be a possibly cheaper option to bring in and would still be an acceptable number 2. And so if we kind of take a look at his numbers real quick here. So Calvin in 2023, this is somebody who he broke 1,000 yards. He had 76 receptions. He had 8 touchdowns. Those are incredible numbers. And if you're wondering how incredible could those numbers be, let me throw some other numbers at you. 65 receptions, 950 yards, and 7 touchdowns. If you're wondering who on the Bears that was, it was nobody. That's the gap in receptions, yards, and touchdowns between DJ Moore and the second highest in each of those categories from a Bears receiver last season, which happened to be Darnell Mooney for all 3. Let me say that again. DJ Moore had 65 more receptions than the next highest total from a Bears receiver. DJ Moore had 950 more receiving yards than the next highest total from a Bears wide receiver. DJ Moore had 7 more touchdowns than the next highest total from a Bears receiver. And so you take a look at these stats and you're like, all right, so immediately 76 receptions. That's more than the delta between DJ Moore and Darnell Mooney. 1,016 yards, that's more. 8 touchdowns, that's more. You pair Calvin Ridley with DJ Moore, and all of a sudden, baby, you got a stew going. You've got a real opportunity to stretch the defense, to put stress on them from different sides of the field. And then if you go into the draft and you take one of these top 8, top 9 receivers who a lot of people say all have that kind of first-round grade, now you can slot a rookie receiver in that number 3 spot, take some pressure off of them, give them an opportunity to develop. You don't have to necessarily give a huge long-term contract to Calvin Ridley. Maybe you give him 2 years, but a little bit higher dollar, and it just gives you that opportunity to kind of slowly bring on a rookie. Don't expect them to light the world on fire. And if they do light the world on fire, now all of a sudden you've got a great problem, which is you might have 3 number 1s, or you might have a number 1 and a couple number 2s, or you might have 2 1s and a 2. Either way, this is a proposition the Bears just haven't had. And so I really dig this. I like this idea. I think, as much as T. Higgins or Mike Evans would excite me, I think they're going to cost a lot more. I think Calvin Ridley, you're probably looking at $15 million a year range. The Bears currently are sitting somewhere around $50 million in cap space, and that's before they cut Cody Whitehair and Eddie Jackson. Once those guys are cut, which I believe both will be cut, they're going to be looking at north of $60 million to spend. And so putting $15 million into a secondary receiver, I think that's very doable, especially if you're resetting that rookie quarterback contract, and you're not necessarily committing as much money to Justin Fields down the road, but instead you're bringing in a cheap rookie quarterback that can allow you to spend on a position like your second wide receiver. So let me know what you think. Is this the craziest thing, or is this as exciting to you as it is to me? Let me know in the comments what you think about Calvin Ridley. And thanks so much for watching. Bear down.